is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
You want to be bad, don't tell you be him. On the road you behind, the truck it go be great. If you want to feel alive, then switch to the winning side. You see how we move in style, is a vibe on Be Mobile. It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe on Be Mobile. It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe with Be Mobile.
Come and see what plan it could get. See what plan it could get. Come and see what plan it could. See what plan it could. See what plan it could get. All of the plan the best. All of the plans the best. Come and see what plan it could. See what plan it could. Be Mobile. Top it up, 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 top it up. Only we buying bundles. Top it up, 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 top it up.
It's a vibe on Be Mobile. It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe on Be Mobile. It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe with Be Mobile.
Hi, good evening, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of the Minority Report. I'm Ireland David, your host, and as per usual, I'm here yet another week, raring to go, getting the information out to the public, having the discussions, having the conversations, sharing that information across the length and breadth of Tobago. And as we always do, we always have some very interesting guests in studio with information that is factual and information that definitely would put you in a frame of mind to wonder what should take place next. This evening, if you're looking at the program, we want to encourage you to log on to the Tobago Updates website, where you can view this program live, the Tobago Updates YouTube channel, or the platform most persons tend to utilize, the Tobago Updates Facebook page. If you are desirous of giving us a call, you're desirous of sending information, a photograph of some sort, and we have been encouraging persons to do so that we as well can be in a better position to treat with issues as they come. You can send that WhatsApp to 284-6597. That's 284-6597 or 356-8833. 356-8833. And folks, we want to encourage you to get your families together, encourage your friends and so on, send messages around. Let's get as many persons as possible to be a part of this evening's program, to participate in the discussions and to benefit from the information that is definitely going to be shared on the program this evening. We want to head right into it, and let me apologize first of all for the late start. We definitely wanted to get off the blocks at 8 o'clock, but it was unavoidable. So for those who would have been logged on since 8 waiting, I know that many persons always anticipate this program, but I can in fact guarantee you that the program is never not on air. We just had a minor delay this evening. So let me move right into introducing my guests in studio, the entire panel this evening. So I'm going to start at my immediate right. We have the minority counselor, always with a soft smile. Minority counselor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, welcome this evening. Glad to have you.
Yes, good evening to all of you tuned in to the Minority Report. Our loyal viewers and listeners, thank you for your continued support. Good evening to the Minority Leader.
And to her immediate right, we have Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, the Minority Leader in the House. Really batting some innings these days. So we know, just as West Indies have been on top of the game, it is reflective of this Minority Council at present. So welcome to the program.
Thank you, Marilyn. Good evening, wonderful people, our viewers, supporters, my hardworking colleague, Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit. And of course, good evening to you as well, Marilyn.
Yes, so before we actually get into our discussions this evening, and we have quite a few things that are very, very pertinent to what is happening in Tobago. I just want to acknowledge and send out condolences. We had a couple deaths nationally. Persons who have made significant impacts throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We saw the passing of what the person many people know as simply Ish, made famous by the Calypso, Ish Kalbaran Singh. We saw his tragic passing yesterday. And for those who may try to understand his connection to Tobago, he's the owner of the Grafton Beach Resort, which has been a long-standing tourism industry entity in Tobago. We also saw the passing of Pastor Rollins Bacchus yesterday as well. And the one that I think hit hardest to us yesterday evening was the passing of Dr. Kinetta Bob. I know, Minority Leader, I would allow you to send out your condolences and so on.
Well, like you, Marilyn, I would want to join with the rest of Tobago and the national community in extending condolences to a daughter and a son, two outstanding individuals that would have departed us here in Tobago in the person of Pastor Bacchus and Miss Kenetta Bob. Our condolences are extended to the families. We know Pastor Bacchus has been someone that has been a very outstanding member of the People's National Movement. I think I recall that he did serve in the days of the county council and has always been there giving loyal support. And therefore to Lyndon and the rest of the family, I definitely want to send out my personal condolences on behalf of myself and my family, as well as to Dr. Bob and the rest of the family of Miss Kenetta Bob. I also want to express my deepest and sincerest condolences.
Minority Councillor.
No, I want to also join in extending my condolences to the Bacchus family. And as the Minority Leader indicated, Mr. Bacchus has been a stalwart, a pillar. We know he has experienced some challenges with his health, but regardless, Mr. Bacchus, or Pastor Bacchus, as we fondly call him, will continue to show up. And so we extend condolences to his family and Miss Bob. I had the privilege of working alongside Miss Bob as a commissioner on the Tobago Festivals Commission. And over that time, the relationship between Miss Bob and I grew, and it is indeed a great loss. I know I have seen a lot of expression of sadness going around on social media. So to Dr. Bob and the rest of the family, we do express our deepest condolences to you in this very difficult time.
And thank you very much, guys. We want to, as a team, really express that our condolences, and again reach out to the family, the close friends, and so on, and all of Tobago, because this is indeed a loss, a significant loss for Tobago. And we've seen some stalwarts going recently, and we really want to. It's important for us to continue to pray. Just as those persons are moved out, we really want to trust God that we would see persons of similar caliber rise into the fields that they would have functioned in, and quote unquote the mantle passed on. So this evening we want to treat with a couple topics, and I want us to get right into it in the interest of time. Minority leader, minority councillor, you all are fresh out of the house last Thursday, where a significant motion was moved by the minority, bringing it to the attention of this present administration, who the minority felt that with the what we've seen happening in Tobago, the increase in unemployment, and unemployment as a direct result of policies, of actions, initiatives taken by this administration, putting people not just on the breadline, but causing families to suffer across the board. And I mean, all the research is there, the data is there, that connects increase in criminal activities and all the different ills of society with increasing employment and the pressure in terms of the social standing of the community. Now, what was significant, and I know we're going to delve right into it, is that though this motion sought to identify and to highlight that this action or this type of behavior is only going to cause things to be worse, this administration, in their attempt to respond to the motion, nobody actually responded to the motion. They just went down a petty road, and I must say to the Secretary of Agriculture to come down from there. Her behavior was definitely out of order. I saw somebody who came out of the bowels of the PNM, who knows about standard, who knows about decorum and proper behavior and the way to carry yourself, reach right down to the debasing type of behavior that we've seen come out of members of this administration who speak across the floor in derogatory terms and so on. And we saw that now displayed with the Secretary of Agriculture. And I want to say to her, Secretary Pantin, come down from there. Conduct your business in the way and the manner that you're supposed to conduct it. But let's get right into it. Neither of the speakers addressed the actual motion. And again, for the benefit of the public, minority leader, explain to the public what this motion really was about, what we intended to achieve and to highlight with this motion being tabled.
Well, first and foremost, I'm sure all of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago would recall the issue where there was a newspaper headline: over 60 employees from TATCO were dismissed, unceremoniously dismissed. And so right away that caught the attention of the minority, given that this appears to be a trend now of this current administration, and a policy to basically dismiss, terminate workers under the guise of restructuring. We saw that happening to the workers in the division of infrastructure. I think it was over about 40 workers there in the monitoring and evaluation unit. And then you saw another 30 workers in the office of the chief secretary community partnership unit. And then recall what they did to CPEP, the CPEP workers, another about 50 or so workers under the guise of restructuring again. And then there were some rumors about them going and trouble the YES program. I'm not too sure that they have done it as yet, but that was one of the other programs they were looking at. And then now we see that they have reached to TATCO, and it therefore, for us as a responsible minority, we found it important for us to bring a motion to the House to raise concern and to raise our objection to the treatment of Tobagonians, where you are taking bread off the table and out of the mouths of hard-working, honest Tobagonians. And we felt that we could not sit idly by, and we asked the majority side in this instance to review that policy and rescind that decision. Ultimately, the people of Tobago got an opportunity to see who are the people who have their backs, and an opportunity to see the people who just don't care. The motion that was firmly rooted in a bread and butter issue of employment, we know that it's a basic human adult need to earn an income. And this administration seems to be hell-bent on denying Tobagonians the ability to earn an honest income and to be an active participant, an active contributor to the development of the island. So, just to be clear, in terms of the motion, we attempted to highlight the fact that here it is. The workers, by the chairman's own admission, were excellent workers, contributed to the establishment and development of the company to where it is today. And therefore, it is almost heartless to see, after they would have done their part, each worker received satisfactory appraisals, meaning that the supervisors were comfortable with their performance. And even in spite of that, all of these workers, on the expiration of their contracts, were terminated without giving them a renewal, an opportunity to have their contracts renewed. And what we also saw is that the manner, so it's not just what was done, but it was also how it was done. Because you treated these people had a legitimate expectation. The company would have asked the workers whether they were interested in returning. And usually there's a policy that the previous administration would have put in place to protect, that legitimate expectation. So that if a THA division or if a THA body is not going to renew your contracts, they ought to communicate that to you within 3 months of the expiration of your contract. They ought to also explain to you what is there are some grounds upon which whether it's redundancy, whether it's non-performance, whether it's restructuring or so. They ought to communicate that so you have ample time and so that you can now start to go job hunting, you can prepare yourself, start to reorganize your bills and all of that. None of that was done. In fact, a number of the employees indicate that the chief secretary himself gave certain commitments on more than one occasion. And therefore, it was a big surprise to them that as their contracts came to an end, they were basically told, thanks for your service, but no thanks for your renewal. And that to me is nothing short of wicked, nothing short of heartless, nothing short of uncaring. Minority Councillor.
No, you're right. And one of the things that we wanted to stress in the motion is due process wasn't followed. And as you would have outlined, Minority Leader, there is a Chief Administrator Circular that basically gives the guidelines of the process that should be followed for renewal of contracts or non-renewal of contracts. And you are to give the specific notice to the worker if their contracts will be renewed, and if their contracts will not be renewed, you are also supposed to indicate to them, you are to thank them for their service. And as the Minority Leader indicated, you are to let them know specifically that your contract will not be renewed for these particular reasons. If you looked at the letters given to the workers of TATCO upon the expiration of their contracts, yes, they were thanked, but none of them specifically indicated that their contracts will not be renewed and the reasons for which they will not be renewed. When we spoke to some of the now former employees of TATCO, some of them would have also indicated that I never even got a letter.
Yeah.
You know, and the process, the secretary in her comments in the presentation in the debate basically tried to make excuses, because I don't think she would have responded to the motion at hand.
Never.
So she would have spoken about the history of TATCO and the losses that would have been experienced by the 3 companies that would have been dissolved to form TATCO. And that was all public knowledge, because even in the preamble to our motion, we indicated that that was the reason. And even when TATCO was formed back in 2020, the Chief Secretary would have indicated, well, these are the reasons that we are trying to dissolve these other companies, these other 3 companies, and to form TATCO. And mind you, all the losses that were indicated by the secretary, and the secretary quoted a number of years of losses. But what the secretary failed to say is that she was also a part of one of the boards that...
And not the irony of it is not even that she was a part, but she was deputy chairman.
Deputy chair.
As far as I understand.
Yeah, because our company.
Of one of the, I think it's TCPL.
Yeah.
And here you are, being collectively responsible then for whatever was the administration of the company. And all of a sudden, you have distanced yourself from that, and you're now condemning to that to which you were a part and involved. Because once you, if she was so taken aback as to what was happening there, why then didn't she resign and distance herself? She continued to receive the payment, the stipend. She continued to be part of the decisions that led to the very losses that she's now criticizing, but failed in the motion to make the public aware that I too was a part of that which I'm criticizing.
And the other thing that stood out to me is that the secretary would have spoken about employees being disenfranchised because they were working in positions with lesser pay but greater qualifications when compared to their colleagues. And my question is, if employees were disenfranchised while they were employed, yes, you as an individual, as an employee, you will want pay that is commensurate with your qualifications and experience. But what will happen to an employee when he's unemployed?
Exactly.
How will he feel being unemployed? And to me, it did not, I didn't understand the rationale for what they would have done.
The excuses left so many more questions and answers, because in one breath, she's taking credit for giving to the employees contracts. That was her word. Although the information is that that was just procedural. But if you are taking credit for giving the employees contracts, and you're saying one of the issues why you had to dismiss everybody is to stagger the contracts, why then didn't you utilize the opportunity then to stagger the contracts?
Yes.
Because if you're now going to issue contracts, you could have staggered the contracts to allow some people to go before, some people to go after,
yes.
Yeah.
and so forth. So then you saw, and I hope contract officers are taking note, because when they cannot get to the substance of justifying the dismissal, they get very personal. And you saw situations where the secretary was attacking workers personally,
Yeah.
making some claims. I'm not too sure she has the confidence to come outside of the house and make those claims and call some names, because if she's confident that that is the information, she should be able to come out of the house. But attacking the same very excellent workers that the chairman alluded to, and making it sound as if some of them are criminals, some of them are thieves, some of them are frauds. And this is how this administration, they are treating workers of the Tobago House of Assembly at this time. And I believe at this time, I'm simply saying to contract workers, and I'm asking the question, are contract workers under attack by this administration?
And Minority Leader, on that point, on that note, I want us to take a walk down memory lane, because Tobago needs to remember that these persons who are standing here speaking said certain things to Tobago. I'll ask the director to run that first clip for me, please.
How would you allay the fears of individuals who are currently employed on contract under the present administration if they decide to choose the PDP as their party of choice? Now let me tell you something, you don't have to fear the PNM losing election, because one of the things I will do as Chief Secretary is ensure that you don't lose your job because a PNM person will give you a contract. That's not how it's going to work with me at all. You are Tobagonian first and foremost. And on an island with 60,000 or less people, we don't have enough people to actually live on the island and do the kind of work we want to do on the island. So it makes no sense alienating people. They have told you is that you will lose services when you vote for the PDP. You have no service to lose when they vote for the PDP. In fact, the PDP is about providing service more than anybody else, to the point that they also accuses us of wanting to spend out money on you, give away money to you, promoting laziness. They try to accuse us of that. But you will not lose any services. You will not lose your jobs. You will not lose your food cards. Nobody coming to take back a hamper from you that they give you. Nobody coming to take away a contract that you're already doing. Because we have been saying from this platform, this is about Tobago.
Strive to ensure that our workers are secure in their jobs. So one of the things that we will do is ensure that all of our contract workers, starting with those who've been on contract for more than 7 years, will become permanent, because we need to ensure that Tobagonians are comfortable, that they are secure.
There's a need to treat our nurses better than that. And I raised the issue. I raised the issue earlier this year, and the Secretary of Health quite nonchalantly said, but, well, they're temporary, but they're doing permanent work. At what point does temporary becomes permanent? We have to treat our people better than that. This is not slavery. If we want the best out of our people, we have to treat them better than that. And you may.
So, folks, I decided let's take that walk down memory lane.
Wow.
I know many of us are flabbergasted, blown away, in disbelief with what you've heard. And again, as we always promote, we go right to the horse's mouth to get the information. We didn't come here to interpret what the now Chief Secretary said. We didn't want to interpret what the now Deputy Chief Secretary said. We wanted you to hear for yourself what were some of the things that were spoken of on the campaign trail when a bunch of people who are now known to be incompetent to carry out their functions wanted to get the vote to get at Tobago's resources? It's out in the open now. Minority Leader, you keep saying, wow. It's like...
I am seriously lost for words. I really don't believe that that clip that you just showed there is the same people that is currently running the THA. No, that have to be...
Yes, two different
people.
Yes.
Another group.
Yeah, have to be a different group.
Honestly.
And you would not lose service. You wouldn't lose your contracts.
So
you
they were clear as to what was the concerns of the voters. And they made certain commitments. And it was carte blanche. It was clear that you would not lose your jobs. And since then to now, over 500 Tobagonians, THA workers, have lost their jobs by the direct action. So it's not of this same administration. And he understands when you fire somebody what kind of tyrannical action it is. He described it in one of those clips.
I guess that amnesia has stepped in.
That's worse than amnesia.
Well, I don't understand amazing, what it is.
And I really hope that persons who would at some point have the opportunity to make a choice again would remember what was said on the hustings, on the campaign trail, would remember what was done while in office, and now that they are coming back to you again for your vote, you would remember what to believe and who to believe.
But it is clear that all of Tobago was hoodwinked. And all that was promised basically came to naught, because at the first opportunity you got to fulfill your promise, you basically throw the contract employee under the bus. You deem them as political hires. So how can we trust your word? How can we trust you? And what resonates with me in the third or the fourth clip with the Deputy Chief Secretary is the question that was asked in the House by the Minority Leader on Thursday in relation to another contract employee who had a good performance appraisal, who the HR officer recommended for re-engagement, who the administrator also recommended, and there was no reason given by the Deputy Chief Secretary to not renew the contract of this worker. And when posed with the question, how long was his service? Was it more than 7 years?
More than 7 years.
So I guess he does not fall into that category to become a permanent employee.
And Minority Council, I think you could speak to this better than most people, but this administration sort of reminds me of the UNC and the actions of the UNC in 2010. When they came in, it was like with a sort of vendetta. Just looking for anything and any way that they believe that
if you sung PNM, you look like PNM. If you resemble red,
anything that was created that they believed has the DNA of the PNM, it's like to come and eradicate it. And that for a lot of the workers, some of them innocently, they are being eradicated, all because this administration believes that for some reason they are PNM. But even so, PNM people and Tobagonians too, doesn't PNM people deserve to participate in the development of Tobago? And I thought this Chief Secretary said to all of Tobago that after the elections would have been completed, they would take off their PDP garbs and put on their Tobago robes. And I simply want to ask him, Mr. Chief Secretary, and to your rest of secretaries, where are your Tobago robes tonight? Where are your Tobago robes, knowing that there are over 60 families in the instance of Tatco? that is without any income to buy food, to pay bills, to pay rent, to go to the grocery. There are over 500 Tobagonians and 500 families unemployed because of your actions. Where is your Tobago robes tonight? And where is your Tobago robes for those Tobagonians who would have been fired under the watch of this administration?
No, Minority Councillor, you brought up the question in the House. And again, we want persons to also do the comparison for themselves. The Deputy Chief Secretary was asked a question about a similar situation where she was directly involved in the termination. And I'll ask the director to pull up the clip, the one that I just indicated, so that the viewers can actually hear. Now, we just heard what she said. We just heard her. Let's hear what she said in the House when this question was posed to her.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Question 105. At the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, the employment protocols that I met when I assumed office in December 2021 are the same employment protocols utilized now. This includes the process where all contract employment requires approval of the Executive Council in the first instance, and then approval of the Secretary for subsequent contract periods. Please note that contracts have a definite beginning and end. In this case, all of the information available to me as a Secretary was used to assist in determining whether the division should re-engage the officer in question. Please note, Madam Presiding Officer, that the inferences made within the body of the question do not accurately represent the information that was taken into account when making that decision. Madam Presiding Officer, I have refused to speak about this case publicly because I firmly believe that the information within an employee's personal file should remain confidential, as is written on the file jackets of those said personal files. As a result, Madam Presiding Officer, in an effort to protect the confidentiality of this particular employee, I simply wish to reiterate that the inferences as outlined in the question do not accurately reflect the conduct and performance of the former employee of the division. Thank you.
So we seeing I mean an abyss of hypocrisy and a secretary who seemed to be very uncomfortable with a response, somebody who is normally cocky and arrogant, very uncomfortable reading from her phone with this response and actually indicating, taking a stand against the confidentiality. This administration knows anything about confidentiality, people's confidentiality. They are the ones that be dragging people information all over the place on Facebook. Nevertheless, this is the same person who sat on a table and spoke to making THA employees comfortable. Once you cross what?
7 years.
7 years.
Permanent.
You become permanent. Tobago, you all heard what she now said? It's a cop out now.
So, the thing is, and as a minority council, I think you said it best. This comes down to now a question of trust. Whether we can trust these people, because you're seeing it playing out in front of your very own eyes. And the good thing is there are sufficient recorded information to remind you of what was promised and what has been delivered. They promised job security, instead they delivered job insecurity and firings. They promised to grow the Tobago economy. The Tobago economy has decreased. They promised contractors that you will not be, they would honor your contracts, they would pay you. And up to this time, up to this day, the contractors remain unpaid and most of them blacklisted. So clearly, Tobago, we are seeing before our eyes a group of people we just cannot believe their word. What they say and what they do does not line up. It's always they major in contradictions. They always contradict what they promise and what they deliver. And it is there for you to see. This secretary is on record as filing a writ in the courts of Trinidad and Tobago saying that she's not responsible for hiring anyone. But in the response, she's now saying that ultimately she's the one that has to hire or rehire the employee. So it matters not whether the employee got a good appraisal from the HR. It matters not whether the administrator is satisfied with the performance and with the report and would recommended that the employee be rehired. And the secretary is misrepresenting the process, because while nobody is saying that you have to rubber stamp, but the process is really made there, is really for you noting in a sense, but is the real process takes place at the level of HR and the administrator, and they are simply sending the just is like you're sending up something to the president to be assented is really just for them to finish the process. But this secretary chose for someone without alerting the house or explaining to the house why she chose to go down that road, just decided to willy-nilly deny someone who has provided 7 years service to an organization of employment. And in a real sense, it begs the question whether she has in fact committed a breach in the Integrity of Public Life Act. Because here it is, a secretary who's supposed to execute her functions without fear or favor, malice or ill will, and the evidence is there, administrator recommendation, HR recommend approval, and yet you have denied this person their legitimate right to a renewed contract.
And it begs the question, what information that the secretary had to inform her decision that neither the HR nor the administrator had when they made the recommendation to renew.
Correct.
Exactly.
And this is why I keep on going back to the question on contract workers now. You would have to determine whether you are comfortable with an administration that believe that they have a golden pen and they would hold that golden pen over your heads as some kind of leverage against you. Because here she's basically saying, well, if we decide
that and my recommendation
my
recommendation
and I don't like your head, I would just decide
I am not going to recommend you.
And remember the chief secretary when they were going through that audio gate presentation, when he said they would just start to fire people just so.
And don't care if you go on Facebook and cry.
And the callous nature of the action. And Minority Leader and Marilyn, if you listen to contract workers from December, January, when this administration came into office, you see a continual increase in uncertainty, in fright, in a level of stress, because once the contract is up for renewal, people get a sense of anxiety because they no longer is certain whether or not their contracts will be new. And if you are working at an establishment for 5, 10, 15 years, there's a legitimate expectation that your contract will be renewed.
And this is also contributing to the slowdown in the Tobago's economy, because now people are so uncertain. There's such a high level of uncertainty that people now are hoarding the little money that they have. They're not
afraid to spend it.
They're not investing. They're not because they just don't know that when my time comes, what would happen. And it is so disappointing and unfortunate, because the previous administration, you have to give them credit for the fact that they ensured that they made contract employees and contract employment a level of security and stability by ensuring that the policy is that once you fulfill your first interim 1-year contract, then you are your contracts that come subsequently are 2-year contracts on completion of a satisfactory performance appraisal.
And contract workers should have been alerted when the circular came out, which indicated that renewal of contracts are no longer automatic. That should have triggered something in their side. And the thing about it is too, this policy decision of the administration not only affects the stability and the security of the contract worker, but it is also reflecting on the financial institutions. No longer are the financial institutions feeling a sense of safety that they can issue a mortgage, issue a loan to a THA employee in excess of their contract period.
And again, as well, you see, so here you have the Deputy Chief Secretary trying to say that they are following the policy of the predecessors, but forgot that her Chief Secretary, through that circular, amended the policy, because under the previous administration, contract renewal for persons already engaged in the system was automatic, and they devolved that authority to the divisions. So it was basically, and that's why it's called secretary notes, because it's basically an automatic process, goes up to the secretary, secretary signs off, because the appraisal is good, recommend renewal, and you come back to the job and you perform
after your end of contract, because it was common practice and that after the end of your contract
Petal said as well, as Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit said, in terms of the financial institutions, they got so comfortable providing financial support and financial products to THA workers, because to the point that they would simply call the HR. I have an application here from ex-employee. What is the chances of this person being renewed? Renewed, yeah, 3 years, and they go ahead and they make
issue a mortgage,
But now,
and even if you, because I've had the experience where working in multiple divisions, they would call even if you would have made a limited time in one division, but because you would have been working in another division, that will be a part of your assessment in terms of your risk. So they will call your division that you are currently working, they will call the previous division, have them submit supporting documents to indicate that you have been working there for a period of time. So collectively, as a Tobago House of Assembly, there was that confidence built in the financial institutions.
And I had to explain that to friend of mine recently. I said, because what they have done now is redefine a contract employment in the Tobago space. Because before, contract employment was almost contract continuous. That is how the financial institutions saw it. So your contract continuous employee. So it means that your contract would continue to roll over and roll over a renewal. But they are now telling the financial institutions that here this 3-year contract that this employee has, there's a beginning and there's an end, and there's no guarantee whether it would be renewed. So you know what? If a bank is to really provide a financial service to you, they would know, unless you can qualify for which that 3-year period
Yeah.
or that period to which your contract ends. It makes it so much more difficult. It also increases the payment because if you have to confine the installment, if you have to confine it to 3 years rather than over an extended period that carries you beyond the contract, then that's a whole different situation. And so they are now putting additional pressures on the THA employee because now not only am I working with a 3-year contract, but if I want to get a vehicle, for instance, I'm confined to using a larger chunk of my salary, my disposable income to pay a loan for a vehicle. And so you've seen the ripple effects and why the Tobago economy on a whole is feeling the pressures of the policy of this administration to put it is a clear policy to put pressure on the contract worker and to put hardship on Tobago people.
And I feel as well that we have regressed because many years ago, this was an issue that the THA addressed over time. And we have come full circle now where a situation is occurring.
Further back from to the point it was at.
It is sad.
We want to pay some bills. Take a short break. Folks, we want you to continue to stay logged in, stay locked on. The discussion is continuing to mount, and we'll be right back shortly.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tapago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tapago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
Rotisserie, mouth-watering fries, salads, combos, and specials galore. Feeling for something to eat? Come and see. Our rotisserie is seasoned to the T. Kicking chicken, masala, and jerk roast. Crispy fries made from scratch. Who do you know can't beat that? Or salads freshly cut and packed. When you taste it, you'll be wanting to come back. So come check us out on number 2 Robinson Street, Uptown Scarborough, Tobago. We open on Saturday nights from 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. and on Friday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Contact us at 772-7443 and all social media handles at The Rotisserie Factory.
So folks, we are back in studio and some very, very interesting discussion off air. And we want to be able to share some information with you as per usual. We always try to provide you, the public, with the quality information. Minority Leader, you had something you were sharing with us.
So what has I've been getting some messages from workers, and what they are saying to me is that on no more than 3 occasions they met with the highest office holder in Tobago, and in the person of the chief secretary, and on every occasion at those meetings they were reassured by the chief secretary that no one would lose their jobs. And if that is so, if what they are saying is true, and I leave it to the chief secretary to refute. If it's not true, he's free to refute and deny the claims of the workers. But the workers, they are saying that they were given assurances by the chief secretary that they would not lose their jobs. And that reminds me and brings into the question not only a legitimate expectation, but there's also something in contract law that is called detrimental reliance. And what that term really, in other words, what that really says is that if someone makes a commitment, promise you something, you as the individual who is being promised, you rely on their commitment, their promise, their truthfulness, the reliability of their word. And because you believe that they would deliver on that promise, you may go ahead and start to make plans, and you may incur a debt or so because you expect them to deliver on their word. And therefore, in contract law, that is recognized as another aspect to be considered, because if in this case the chief secretary would have given those workers that commitment, then they would have started to plan for re-engagement, so they would start to make sure they have certain things and so forth. And therefore, they would have started to make arrangements or contracts with others to their detriment. And that is where the whole term detrimental reliance, because they would have relied on the word,
on what was said.
On what was said.
I'm asking the director to pull up the definition as well, so persons who may have missed when you read it out, that they could see exactly what it is. Minority, I think if you could explain that part about the promise, right, or the obligation.
Okay. So it's basically, so let's say, for instance, the claim that is being made is that by the workers is that the chief secretary had committed or gave them the assurance that they would not lose their jobs. So on 3 different occasions, all up to perhaps 2 or 3 weeks before their contracts came to an end, they were given the assurance that they would not lose their jobs. So if you're getting this commitment from the most senior public officer, say on more than 3 occasions, then it therefore means that that promise is something that persons may have taken to make financial arrangements to their detriment. And therefore the courts, the industrial court and the IR principles recognize this as detrimental reliance, and detrimental reliance meaning that you would have made decisions based on a promise and relied on the word of someone who had the ability to deliver on the promise. So someone at the level of the chief secretary is telling you you would not lose your job. You then would take that as being truthful, reliable, and you then started making plans to...
So, question to you. And we're looking at the definition of it here. A promise being made, the term is typically used when a promise or obligation is not kept, and relying on a promise was a reasonable decision on the part of the reliant person. We saw an entire election campaign where a number of promises, even the clips that we listened to, and some of those things where people were told they wouldn't lose their jobs.
And that
Contractors
would
were
be
told you would
very
lose your
interesting
contract.
because and again, that is detrimental reliance because even
So
on
since then,
you were given assurances
Mhm.
that, and you made decisions based on those assurances,
Yeah.
including choosing, because
Yeah.
that was one of the major concerns, I'm sure you recall, for a lot of public servants, whether they
if the
and
administration changed, what would
what
happen?
will happen.
And a lot of persons continued, quote unquote, business as usual,
Yeah.
went into the banks, did stuff and so on, just on the promise that no contract worker will lose your contract, no contractor will have a dishonored contract. And I mean, what we are seeing now is something completely different to what was said coming into the election. And again, we go back, Minority Leader, to the issue of trust. So far, every public official that has stood on the team of the independents, as they call themselves, what they have said prior and what they are saying now is something totally different.
And
how do they look at themselves in the mirror?
And the thing, just to go back to the substance of the motion, which we said really had to do with the process and how you treat with people, recognizing there are people first and foremost, people with families, people who have other people depending on them, including their children and extended family and so forth. Then the decision cannot be an arbitrary one. And based on all the facts that we have compiled, there was no clear working out of this decision. The justification have been all arbitrary. When you listen to the justification, it was not something that was planned out. We even asked, where is the Executive Council approval and for the restructuring? And the Secretary could not provide where the authority, Ms. Benoit, in the question leading up to the debate, asked on what authority did you make this decision, and she wasn't able to provide us with a clear policy position that led to the termination of these workers. And, you know, when you look across the board, expanded to the monitoring evaluation again, you look at CPU again, you look at CPEP, because we were told that CPEP was going to have this restructuring and there will be a renewed CPEP. And the only thing that was restructured were the people, the workers. That was everything remains the same. The same program, no new policy, no new direction. So it is clearly a policy to take bread out of today onions mouth and send people home.
And more than that, what resonates with me, all the excuses that were given at the end of the contracts for not renewing the contracts. The question is, couldn't you have staggered the workers' contracts while they were still engaged? Couldn't you have done the manpower audit and reassign persons based on best fits qualifications and experience while they were engaged? All the things that you have said that you are trying to regularize, couldn't that been done while the workers were still there?
Because, for instance, the same workers that you sent home, and you are now saying some of them are unfit.
Rehired,
You call them back on short term. So month to month. To fulfill the same positions is now asking them to interview for. So even if you wanted to stagger, there's so many, because even if everybody contract came to an end, you could have brought back, you could have looked during that period of review. You could have determined which positions you're going to offer contracts right away, which positions you're going to let them work for about 6 months just to stagger and then offer them a contract thereafter. And so you create the stagger, you keep the people employed, keep them earning an income without taking away bread out of their mouth. When you look And the other issue we had is that when you look at the real gist of the issues at TATCO, it has a little to do with the employees,
Exactly,
but more to do with the
management.
board and the management. Because when you have a situation where you are saying that you are unable to meet the 600,000 staff bill because your subvention is 500,000, but yet you are paying $100,000 for a stage to go and dance cocoa. So you prefer to dance cocoa than to pay and maintain the employees who have their families to take care of, who are also keep making sure that the company remains sustainable, remains viable, and gets things done. You prefer to pay $95,000 to have a company come in to move some benches at the food hub from the left side to right side.
No.
From top side to down side. 95,000.
To build benches?
No. You heard what I'm saying? To reposition benches from one side
place to
the next side.
Within
in the same so they didn't even put them on a truck and tie them anyway.
$95,000.
$95,000 to reposition
$95,000. But minority leader, the maths is not mathsing, as you would say, because in one breath you cannot be complaining about the subvention given, and in the other breath you're boasting about profits and revenue and profitability.
Yeah.
So you are quoting the profit, but you are not quoting the expenditure. For us to, because we can't trust you. Plain and simple, we can't trust your word, because based on past experiences, what you say and what you do is two different things. So tell us, what is the expenditure? Tell us what the income. We could work out what the profit is.
As well, where are the financial audited statements of TATCO, so that we can actually have a document that we can trust and from an external independent auditing firm, and therefore we would get to look at the accounts and we would see what is making what and what is not making what. Because the chairman went to the Joint Select Committee interview, and he was boasting about how much revenue he could have tell the committee how much revenue they earned from the sale of the contract farming program. But when asked how much money did you expend, he started stuttering and then had, so imagine, you know off the top of your head what is the revenue, but you have absolutely no clue what is the expense. And
you also have no clue about, so you know the outputs, but you don't know the inputs. So you can't truly judge whether or not you would have positively impacted. And it's a similar thing that the secretary came to the house with. So she condemned everything in the past as failure, and all she brought was goodies from
one side.
So you brought one side of the equation, you didn't show us the other side under your tenure.
Because it begs the question, if the company is doing as good as the secretary
you don't need subvention.
Claiming, then why are you troubling the workers?
Correct.
And
why are you complaining about the subvention?
Why are you complaining
that you don't have sufficient funds to run?
Minority leader, you hit on something. Because even in that whole scenario there with the contract, the poultry contract program, you challenged the secretary in the house on information that has come to light about rotten chicken and fish in the storage as well.
And I want to address that, because the secretary is misrepresenting what was said and what was asked and saying, let us not play politics with food.
Exactly.
But when she was there calling out all the losses and all the different things and all that,
the rest of the world wasn't hearing that.
And when they were making claims about the previous board, weren't they playing politics with food? And on top of that, we at no point downplayed the quality of what is being produced by our Tobago farmers on the island. What we simply asked the question about is a situation that was brought to our attention. And
That is currently occurring.
that is currently occurring. And I challenged her and I asked her whether
Come
at
on,
this
go down.
point in time at TATCO they are storing chickens that are now unsellable and some fish that is now unsellable. That was the question. And whether it has reached to the point that they are now basically rotting away in some freezer down there. And I challenge her for us to go and take a look so that we can see for ourselves. And clearly she didn't want to go
Did she
anywhere.
go?
But that had nothing to do with the farmer.
And that has nothing,
Yeah.
that is
That-
TATCO
and the
not having the proper policies and program in place to meet its mandate, which is to find markets. So after you take the produce from the farmers, you're supposed to have the networking
Exactly.
to be able to now resell these to retailers
Within a certain
and
time
within
frame.
a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And it meant that the management, the board of TATCO is the one that is not able to meet its because if you look at the mandate of TATCO, that is what TATCO was there for, now, to make life easier for the farmers. So the farmer,
that
it gives
market.
you that level of reliability that you will have a
assurance.
market. So all you have to do now is just
Concentrate on
focus
farming.
on
Yeah.
producing food.
Yes. Bring
And
quality
once
products.
you produce the food, TATCO is there to take it off of your hands, and they now have the markets that they would be able to sell, and they would be able to add value and get revenue streams. But what TATCO has done, TATCO has lost its way. That is what we have. How many pounds? And TATCO needs to tell us. Give us a list of, and I don't even think they have that. And these are the things that TATCO should be focusing. They should know all the farmers in Tobago, what they're producing, how much they're producing,
produce.
where they're producing it.
Yep.
And they should be able to know when is the harvesting
Harvest
period,
time,
so that
yeah.
they would know when to go and when to collect.
And when to
And
promote which
when to
product.
promote and how to network
Yeah.
how we have farmers at this time producing tons and tons of pumpkin. And the question is how much of those pumpkins are TATCO taking? My information is zilch.
Zero.
So TATCO again and that is the function of TATCO, to support the farmers. So TATCO is busy trying to keep, and I know they don't like when I say it, but things as gambling tournaments and so, that is not the business of TATCO. That is for community development and sport, to bring together communities and bring together sporting groups and so. That is their but not TATCO. TATCO is about food and food production, food security, food diversity. That is TATCO. TATCO is more focused on trying to
entertainment.
entertain people,
rather than
keeping
its core mandate.
rather than its core mandate, which is the farmers imagine up to now. The other aspect of TATCO is that TATCO has neglected the Tobago farmers, and the first policy decision we saw coming out of TATCO was an MOU
Between them.
To become a
between them and a
competitor.
company outside of Tobago. So you're going to build a company that is not Tobago while you neglect the Tobago farmers, and that played out when we had the food box program, where the Tobago farmers
Came out
complaining that here I have corn, here I have pumpkin, here I have cassava, here I have sweet potato, and they took absolutely none of those things from us. But yet you're seeing things coming up from a company from Trinidad. We even saw an invoice which they denied they paid, but the invoice was there for over 200,000. So this Tobago, and you hear the name, it's Tobago Agribusiness Development Company, made to develop the Tobago farmers that has lost its way and sailed and find its way somewhere in South Trinidad.
No, I listened to the secretary in her interview on Friday, and the secretary is attempting, as you would have said, to condemn the minority leader for saying that, or condemn the minority council altogether for talking about the All Fours tournament that was, and basically seeing it as a means of revenue earning. But in my view, as the minority leader indicated, TATCO has veered far away from its core mandate.
Yes.
And even if you want to raise revenue to support the subvention, couldn't it be done within the core values and the core mandate of
the company?
of TATCO? What is the relationship between All Fours and agribusiness?
And the thing is, the two as minority, so you have the farmers and your two main stakeholders and your agro processors. And when you look at where TATCO's focus is, those are the two groups that are crying out the most at this point in time for the support. Where is the, and when you have the supporting instruments to drive that process, where's the packing house to support the farmers? Because the packing house would have taken all these things in bulk, then cut them up, package them, and resell to the hoteliers, to the supermarkets, etc. Failed. Where is the agro processing plant that should have been up in Goldsboro? Even if you came in, you said it was 80% completed. You had an issue with what was spent for the 80%. But the concept itself is a concept of value. You have all equipments sitting in Shore Park waiting to be retrofitted into the facility. Why not call the contractor in, renegotiate the contract, and have the facility completed? Because that is one of the real drivers that will give support to a vibrant agro-processing industry in Tobago. Where is that? And that this is why we really took up the TATCO case in particular, because we felt like the workers were really done an injustice. Because you have poor management when the people who should have been dismissed are the members of that board. When you look at the non-performance, they have failed. That secretary, I remember when we did the score, and we looked at all the things that they said they would deliver, including some of it falling under TATCO. They delivered 0. So they have failed. And in failing, miserably, they have taken out their angst against the hard-working, honest, working Tobagonians, that we all as Tobagonians should stand up and say, this is wrong, and we got not going to accept it. Because what you are seeing is that proverbial saying, first they came and we saw the monitoring, then they went to CPU, then they went to CPEP, then they have come to TATCO, and it is only a matter of time before they come to you.
Closing statements, Minority Councillor.
No, I'm sad. I'm sad to where we are today based on the promises that were made on the campaign trail. I feel that every time an issue is raised, as persons in government, to me, you should look at the merits of each situation and deal with the issues. We are not saying that you are perfect. We are not saying that you will do everything right. We understand that you are new, and we are all new to this type of politics. But govern. I still feel that this administration has not yet settled down to the governance of this island, Tobago. And we are all Tobagonians. In some way, form, or fashion, we are connected. All of we is one family, so to speak. PNM people are also Tobagonians who should benefit from all that Tobago has to offer. Settle down to govern.
This administration is demonstrating a high level of arrogance in governance, and it was plain in the outcome of the motion that even after recognizing the errors of their ways, they decided not even to review the decision. Even in recognizing that, as minority councillors say, they are not perfect, they will err, they may make some bad decisions, and those bad decisions do have an impact. And recognizing the impact to change, they are saying, no, we will do it our way, and it's our way or the highway. And that level of arrogance, we've seen it in even the Secretary of Infrastructure's refusal to
answer questions.
To not even answer questions, but to follow the instructions of the presiding officer. The presiding officer is telling the secretary to provide the answer within an hour, because it is an answer he should have had based on the number of staffing he has to and the time frame that he has to provide the answer. And yet he basically told her no. And true to form, he did not provide the answer as instructed. So what we are seeing is a high level of arrogance, and arrogance also with an extreme dose of incompetence. And that to me is a dangerous combination and a dangerous portion to which Tobago must all pay attention, and to which we all must come together to rescue this island from.
Thank you very much, folks. Folks, we are out of time. We want to close this evening with a bit of musical rendition. I know the director has something queued up for us, but we want you to stay tuned. Next week, Tuesday, we're going to be on again, continuing to share valuable information for you, the public, to make the right choice and the right decision. I'm Marlon David saying good night from the Minority Report and the Minority Council. Have a wonderful evening. Mr. Director, you can go ahead.
Wrong we neck like an albatross, and about a million election in a row you done lost. You ain't see use a cross. Relics, headless licks. Only mama guy and gimmicks. Doesn't leave them rum soak lips. You getting licks, relics. A ton load of licks. Since you insist you have no morals or ethics, I'm gonna be pelting blood, flinging blood, sharing blood, bringing blood from your back straight to your front. Guys so want to blaze you. Musical, lyrical, guys of blood. Your worthlessness can no longer stand with the return of the woman. Oh no, woman in the road. Oh yeah, woman in the road coming down. I said to bring them demon for me, bring them by the billion. Woman in the road, woman in the road coming down. Yes, every day I pray that they don't upset me and mad up me wanga. Cause you see me ain't joking, the war was soaking. Cause when I carry, my guy is over hitting harder than banga. Me ain't joking, oh no, the war was soaking. So them two local little boy leaders in Tobago, who don't seem to know they are assembly from the elbow. It's no surprise, as they get power, they must up and go to and fro. Cause one feel he had too much head, the next one best talent in hit up. So they get in licks, relics, a ton load of licks. Two scheming separatists claiming to seek Tobago interest. Madness, licks, relics, endless licks. Don't let me deal with Chavez and his dotishness. Nobody can rely on nothing you discussing. Cause you love to tell far lies, but you're disgusting. You bring whistleblower trying to escape. Propaganda get caught on tape. But your own blower turn wrong and say your story fake. So to all you take licks, relics, endless licks. Just because you study linguistics, in every language you're talking shit. Load of licks. Now let me tell Solomon why he can't escape this. You cost Trinidad through your whole THA campaign. Then turn wrong and say you want to be mayor of Port of Spain. But the city, your party, the assembly, you could never stand up to all three. Cause you tell we you is Mr. Tired Piggy with no energy. Relics, even your deputy insists your clock always on 6:30. A ton load of licks, whether private or public, like you care service. So you're getting a flinging, a